Welcome to The Explainer. Just look at this place, an offshore platform. It's basically a city on the sea, right? A super complex web of engineering that has to work under just immense pressure. So, in environments like this, where one tiny spark can lead to absolute devastation, you've got to ask, when something goes horribly wrong, what's really behind it?
And, almost every single time, the first answer that pops up is the same: human error. It's easy, right? Someone pushed the wrong button, or they missed a warning light, maybe they didn't follow the procedure to the letter. It's a simple answer. It points the finger at one person, one mistake. But here's the thing. Is it really the right answer, or is it just the most convenient one?
This is where things get really interesting. Because when you start to dig a little deeper, well, it gets complicated. There's this quote from a researcher, R.W. McLeod, that really hits the nail on the head. He says that when we just focus on the person, we completely miss the bigger picture. We don't see the systems surrounding that person. So maybe, just maybe, human error isn't the cause of the failure at all. What if it's actually just a symptom of a much deeper problem with the system itself?
Okay, so if just blaming a person isn't the answer, then what is? Well, to figure that out, we've got to totally shift our thinking about why accidents happen. We need to look at the whole system.
And there's actually a whole field dedicated to this. It's called Human Factors Engineering, or HFE for short. It's a really cool discipline because it completely flips the old way of thinking on its head. See, instead of expecting people to somehow adapt to a clunky, poorly designed system, HFE asks, hey, how can we design systems that actually fit the way humans work? It's about designing for real people, with all our strengths and weaknesses, not for some imaginary, perfect robot.
And that really gets at the core difference here. The old-school traditional view sees a mistake and immediately says, well, that person needs more training, or let's write another 10-page procedure. But the HFE view? It looks at the very same mistake and asks totally different questions. Why was that control panel so confusing? Why were the alarms so hard to understand? What was it about the design of the whole environment that basically set that person up to fail? See? It's a huge shift from blaming the person to actually fixing the system.
So, okay, that's the philosophy. But how do you actually put it into practice? Well, it all starts with designing for reality, for the world as it is, not how we imagine it in a perfect scenario.
Look, in a system this complex, you can't possibly analyze every little thing. It's just too much. That's why HFE is smart about it. It starts by zeroing in on what matters most, something they call safety critical tasks, or SCTs. These are the specific actions we're talking: operating a control panel, maintaining a crucial valve, or responding to an alarm, where one slip-up could trigger a major disaster. That's where you have to focus your energy.
And they have a whole process for this. It's called Safety Critical Task Analysis, SCTA. It's this really logical, proactive, four-step thing. First, you figure out the worst-case scenarios, the major accident hazards. Then you identify the specific human tasks that are supposed to prevent those things from happening. Now, step 3 is the absolute key. You brainstorm all the ways a real person might realistically mess up that task. And then you take all that knowledge and use it to build better, smarter safety measures right into the system itself.
Now, to help visualize all this complexity, analysts often use this really cool tool called a bow tie model. The easiest way to think about it is like a story. On the left side, you've got all the threats, the things that could kick off an accident. In the very middle, the knot of the bow tie, that's the accident itself, the main event. And then on the right, you have all the potential terrible consequences. What the model does so well is show you all the safety barriers you have on either side, working to stop that story from ever reaching its tragic conclusion.
Right, and these barriers, they're really the heart and soul of the whole HFE approach. They're not just single-point solutions. They're these robust, layered defenses that are designed to make the whole system tough, to make it resilient to failure.
Okay, this next part is maybe one of the most important ideas in this entire field. It's the difference between work as imagined and work as done. So, work as imagined, that's the procedure, right? The clean, perfect version written up in a nice, quiet office. But work as done, that's the messy reality of what happens on a noisy rig floor at 3 in the morning under incredible pressure, where people are making all these little tweaks and adjustments just to get the job done. And that gap between the official procedure and what actually happens, that's exactly where all the hidden risk lives.
So why does that gap even exist? Well, it's because of a bunch of things called performance influencing factors, or PIFs for short. These are all the real-world pressures and conditions that make following a procedure perfectly either really hard or sometimes flat-out impossible. I mean, think about it. You've got confusing alarms going off, you're under insane time pressure, the instructions are vague, you're exhausted from a 12-hour shift. These things don't mean someone's bad at their job. They mean the system is asking for something superhuman, something no person can deliver 100% of the time.
So yeah, this gap between the imagined work and the real work, that is ground zero for risk. And to really get it, you have to understand that we're talking about two very, very different kinds of danger.
I love this analogy for thinking about risk. Personal safety, things like wearing a hard hat or safety glasses, that's the lion. It's big, it's loud, it's obvious. You see it coming and you know to pay attention. But process safety, that's the risk of a massive, catastrophic system failure. That's the tiger. It's quiet, it hunts alone, it's sneaky. And a lot of the time, you don't even know it's there until it's way too late. Human factors engineering, that's the skill set you need to go hunting for the tiger. And when an entire organization really buys into this way of thinking, it can change everything. Seriously, safety stops being this reactive blame game you play after something goes wrong. Instead, it becomes this proactive culture of always learning, always improving. Every little slip-up, every near miss, it's not a failure anymore. It's a free lesson, a golden opportunity to learn how to make the whole system smarter and stronger.
When you boil it all down, this whole approach is about one simple, powerful idea: moving away from blame and moving toward better design. It's about finally accepting that humans are, well, human, and then building systems that can handle that reality instead of just crossing our fingers and hoping for perfect people to operate in a totally imperfect world.
And that kind of leaves us with one final thought, right? If we start to accept that human error is usually just a symptom of bad design, it forces you to look at the whole world in a new way. So think about it. What parts of your own daily life, from the confusing software on your phone to the weird layout of your kitchen, what things are quietly, subtly designed in a way that's basically setting you up to fail?